Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, look, I know you and you guys, y'all are down there in the conclave and you're working on all this SERCO intel. You're going to be doing a few citizen intelligence reports on how SERCO relates to senior executive service and to the Crown. It's all very exciting, but I just want to take a moment of your time and let's review some of the pressing news issues of the day, because we're getting a lot of emails from folks that want some clarification.
Well, Betsy, I'm so glad you asked, because even conclave members, especially when they're drinking espresso, they get all nervous about these things. And then I have to remind them of what we have already said. We already told the whole world that Mueller's job right now is to cover the trail of his friends. But his secondary job is to keep this alive for as long as possible, to ruin all the elections that he can. And a subsidiary thing is simply to do what Comey did, push the president in the news by leak after leak after leak, which makes the entire investigation null and void. By the way, each leak, it's supposed to be a secret investigation to see if first off, there was no crime, so it can't even exist. Second off, there's no such charge as collusion. Third off, there's no such charge as conspiracy against America. So there is nothing there. He's already said there's no collusion with Russia. So what are they doing now? These are the subsidiary things. They're keeping this alive as long as they can. And unfortunately, the longer they keep it alive, the more it is exactly what President Donald Trump said. It is disgraceful. It is a witch hunt. It is nonsense. Now, let's not get our, what do they call it? Don't get upset. Okay, folks, don't get upset. Let's
Well, I'm upset. I mean, this is clearly outside of the rule of law. We've got a rogue government working against Trump to bring down the United States government. I mean, it's as clear as that. What do people not understand and get?
But we have even mainstream media and people on mainstream media stating that there's a soft coup going on, and literally stating that the Mueller investigation is the continuation of the soft coup, which Trump pointed at as the insurance package. That is correct. If you want to distill it all down, that's the beauty of what he does. He gives you sound bites so that you can understand it if you just listen to the words. He basically said that it's all a distraction. He said this from the beginning.
It's a war.
He said, look at the crimes of the Democrats.
It's an internal war. And it's all these SES people, these senior executive service people. Mueller's one, Rod Rosenstein's one, Andrew McCabe. I mean, you look down the list of all these players, you check out the research tool that we have, and you'll find they're all from this rogue, unconstitutional group that needs to be eliminated.
Well, in his 8-minute speech, not even speech, a response to the press being in the room asking him questions, he said that the insurance package, and most people don't know what that means. That comes from Page and Strzok and their sex texts. There are 50,000 text messages on U.S. tax dollar money, which we don't get to see in unredacted forms. Not even the Congress gets to see them because they're taking out all personal remarks. But just the remarks that were made said there was an insurance policy, and that was the dossier. And that was, of course, fake. And it came up through the FBI Counterintelligence Department, William Priestap, who was also colluding with John Brennan and the CIA and their silly George Papadopoulos charge from Alexander Downer, who is basically, he is a shill for Hillary Clinton, if you look closely. It's just like this, the newest thing. They're going after Victor Pinchuk's donation to the Trump Foundation. What they're not looking at, and that's what they're after with this Mueller, it's actually Andrew, we said this from the beginning, the second that he hired Andrew Weissman, that you have the most corrupt lawyer there. He's already charged into Manafort's house and stolen stuff and had to give it back. And same thing that he went after with Trump. He's going after the lawyer client privileged material that is kept in the personal safe of the person, the most damnable material they have, because they can't get it from the lawyer. So that's what they got with Manafort. And then they said, oops, sorry, we took this, we're giving it back.
But you can't go into the laptop that Imran Awan left at Capitol Hill with a little note on it that this should be protected because of attorney-client privilege. So let's not go there, but let's do this illegal, unconstitutional interruption into the private attorney for the president.
And the beauty is they went into Manafort's locker and they took stuff then too, and they didn't have permission to do so. That's also has happened with the Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer. He also had a locker because he was staying in a hotel because his whatever was getting renovated. And so they searched his hotel and his locker. Well, the person who let him into the locker wasn't authorized to do so. Same thing with Manafort. So these were illegal searches. But let's not get worked up about this. We told all of you this was going to happen from the time we saw the most criminal group of lawyers ever pulled together by Robert Mueller in his special counsel investigation, which we look at what Andrew Weissman already did. He went in, same exact tactic. He went into the secret storage of President-elect Trump's records during the time from the time he was elected and to the time that he was inaugurated. He's president-elect. They took all of those records, which are the highest classification because they're executive privilege. There's nothing higher than that. That's why when you see Clapper or Brennan or Comey or any of these people out speaking in the public, everything they're saying is actually a security violation. You can't talk about what you said to the president for 5 years afterwards, and even then, it still could be executive privilege. You can go to jail for that. Oh no, they're on mainstream media trying to exonerate themselves with their false alibis. So Andrew Weissman has already, am I getting his name? Wasserman? Weissman, it's Weissman, yeah. Anyway, I may be getting his name confused. Anyway, he's the lead counsel on the team, and he has already, twice with Manafort, illegally seized materials and took attorney-client privilege materials and obviously got what he wanted out of them and then returned them and said, oops, sorry. He hasn't returned President-elect's stolen stuff. He went into the storage while the guy who was there was gone, and they just took it.
I want to know why Rod Rosenstein won't fire Mueller, and I want to know where Jeff Sessions is, and I'm tired of all of this. It's just, people are so tired of the corruption. You know, they want military tribunals. We're ready for it. We see how corrupt everyone is in our government. We see that even if we took it to court, the courts are corrupted. They're all SES members. Thomas, this thing is so nasty. We have to get it fixed.
Correct, and we can, and it's easy to do. We've given the solutions. They're not hard. They're very easy. You just simply pass new laws, new regulations, and all of a sudden entire agencies disappear.
All right. How do we get rid of senior executive service by one law?
Holman Clause. You pay them anyone you want, and you can do it by name. You can do it specifically. You cannot do it by agency. You can pay them $1 a year, and they'll all leave.
So we have the plum book. We have a list of names. They all need to go down to $1. And if they want jobs in civil service, they need to get in line. Just like illegal aliens are getting in line to reapply. SES people need to get in line and apply the right way, which includes a thorough background check and a pay that's within the civil service pay range.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we would endorse. We don't need SES. It's an elite civil service that starts at the highest rank of the top of the merit system in a normal civil service. That's where SES people start. It's easy to take care of that. Easy to take down Silicon Valley. You simply have President Trump sign $1 billion check to Leaders Technology.
Well, how come we're not getting this done? Nothing's happening.
As we say, it's going to take a while. Now, I know you do not want to hear me say this. Matter of fact, don't chop my head off. But
I see no movement at all.
No, you won't see movement until his re-election. Because what you're seeing now is the entire shadow government come out, deep state come out. It's really the deep state high operatives coming out now. That'd be Mueller, Rosenstein, McCabe, Wray, Sessions. We now know how Sessions fits into all of it. He was part of Uranium One up to his eyeballs in it, and he undoubtedly then received money because he sat on 3 committees that had approved CFIUS's approval of basically Russia arms buying Uranium One, which was a Canadian company to begin with. So why did a Canadian company buy our uranium rights, sell it to Russia, and then take it to... This is what's really amazing. I only discovered this today, and this is just shocking. The Russians have been using Oak Ridge after they wore out the Portsmouth, Ohio, and the Paducah, Kentucky enrichment facilities. They went and now they're wearing out the only other one we have, which is in Oak Ridge. And there's one other, and it's owned by, of course, the same people who own SERCO. It's owned by Britain and partially by Holland and partially by Germany. But that's because we're going to be talking about that soon. Please, I shouldn't go down that alley. But anyway, the point is, this is easy to take care of. He's doing what he's supposed to do.
Who?
Why do you think
Who's
Trump?
He? Okay.
Now calm down. He's doing exactly what I would do in his situation. When you are attacked by the enemy, and one of the greatest martial artists I know recently passed, and when people would hit him, he'd let you hit him 10, 12 times. And you go, why is he letting you hit him? Bruce Lee, who was the world full contact martial arts champion the year before my friend Bobby Hankins was.
Well, that's well and good, but Betsy...
No, listen. This is strategy. You let them hit you. You let them hit you. You make them think that you're weak, but you already know what you're going to do. And then, once they're worn out, you just simply take their energy and use it against them. It's very simple to do. But if you cannot take the blows, don't get in the ring. Trump is taking some blows. Why do you think he's taking the blows? He's measuring his opponent. And then these people, after they take 10, 12 blows, hit the person once, they're out. Only one shot. Bruce Lee won that competition 3 years in a row with one punch.
Well, I think that citizens in this country need to be paying attention, and they can start by paying attention to senior executive service and putting pressure on closing down this unconstitutional rogue shadow government. Okay, I said my piece. Now, what about
with Mueller?
But how about Syria too? Don't forget.
Everybody's coming out in the Mueller. Everybody's showing who they are. Trump, he has nothing to hide. Michael Cohen, even if he paid off whatever. It doesn't matter.
And who
that's
cares?
Nothing.
I mean, really.
Even if he got money to a foundation, that's nothing. He got $250,000. Hillary got $25 million from the same person, Victor Pinchuk. That's what they're trying to get.
And I really don't care if Trump had sex with anyone in 2006 before he was a president. I mean, really, does the media really think we give a rat's behind on Stormy Daniels?
Bill Clinton had sex in the Oval Office, the Rose
Raped
Garden.
Everything that walked by him.
Everywhere he could. And he was reelected. Okay. So please don't tell me how sex, even if he did have sex with her, has any bearing whatsoever.
She's a porn star. She says, come have sex with me. I mean, come on. And you know, she's clean because they have to go through all the tests. So if you're going to have sex, I say do it with a porn star who's clean. I mean, that's the way you look at this news. This is crazy stuff. Now, what about Syria?
So don't be worried about Mueller's investigation. Don't be worried that he's gone in and stolen this stuff. This is just the 2 strikes against Mueller. Once Mueller has 3 strikes against him, he'll be out with evidentiary, with being able to bring this as evidence into the case. But already there's tainted evidence in the case. There's the Michael Flynn 302 that was written by the people who spoke with him. That would be Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok is already compromised.
Yeah, and
Michael Flynn should walk.
He's also senior executive service.
Judge Contreras was one of the FISA court judges.
SES.
So the case, Mueller's case has to be thrown out by that. Mueller's case has to be thrown out by the tainted witnesses of Peter Strzok. Bruce Orr, we believe, was also one of the star witnesses, sealed star witnesses.
And he is SES, plus he sits on the Council of 500 at the DOJ. He's one of their top attorneys that keeps an eye on the reservation to make sure that his SES rank and file don't get out of line.
Unless he's indicted, he can't be fired because he's SES, and as you say, he's on the Council of 500. He's in the DOJ. So they moved him around a little bit. That didn't mean they fired him. They didn't indict him. And anybody who thinks an IG is going to help, look at the IG in the Congress with the Imran Awan scandal. No help. Look at the IG in December 2016 for the FISA court. No help.
They're all SES employees. Michael Horowitz is SES. I mean, people, what do you expect? They all are in the same club.
Michael Horowitz should have taken the IG. First off, if he was looking at the DNC and the Russian collusion, he should have looked at the Imran Awan Inspector General recommendations on 24 counts of espionage, but he hasn't. He should have looked at the IG and the FISA, which said that Comey was in 100% noncompliance. Matter of fact, I am shocked he even got a warrant for Carter Page because it was an American warrant, the highest warrant you can get. FISA court, it was a Title I, which he never went to any trouble to get any warrants anytime. They were all surveilling everybody. That's the way it was, and that was the lawlessness of 8 years of Obama. But the point is, Horowitz could have just looked at those reports and found the crimes. He could have looked at the perjury of Comey. He could have looked at the perjury of Andrew McCabe. He could have looked at Andrew McCabe's other 5 cases. Don't expect the Inspector General to come out.
He's not going to. He's there to protect senior executive service employees. That's what he's there for.
You're absolutely right. Now, so don't be worried about this. Is Trump worried? It doesn't matter. There's nothing that they could bring as evidence that they have stolen from his lawyer.
But it is not right. It is
no, it's not
beyond
right. This
the
is beautiful,
rule
though.
Of law.
It shows
Mueller
how evil they are.
Is a thug, and all he's doing is holding the evidence from 9/11 to protect his buddies Bush and Cheney and the.
If we take the number one law enforcement and legal fixer in Washington, D.C., Robert Mueller, and we show him to be the evil, awful, horrible creature he is, after we heard that he had impeccable ethics.
Subhuman. That's what he is in his morality and his integrity.
Well, these things will come out. They'll either all come out or they'll all leave. One or the other, because they are all criminals. Why didn't Rod Rosenstein? He signed a FISA court warrant. But then, so did Andrew McCabe, so did Dana Bionte, the ones that they say, so did William Priestap. They signed these things over and over again. These were illegal. They knew it was. And that's the reason that this big issue comes about. Unredacted FISA court information that was used to get the warrant 4 times in a row. They want to send redacted. No, the Congress is demanding, Goodlate and Nunes, the unredacted. Why? We are your oversight boss managers. You have to give us this. Will they? Eric Holder's evidence in Fast and Furious is now coming to light 10 years later. 10 years it took of constant solid pressure for the SES bureaucratic status quo people to allow something to pass over their desk. Now,
folks, we've got to get rid of these people in Washington, the senior executive service. We have to put a lot of pressure on wherever we can to rid us of this corrupt agency that's keeping us from getting to truth.
Syria is right now as complex an issue as Israel used to be. Now you not only have Muslims and Jews and Christians focused on Jerusalem, you now have them focused on Syria in toto, and you have the entire Muslim world focused there because they have all poured money into both the Shiite and Sunni sides of the fight. And remember, there's 6, 8 different, 12 different factions. Many of them are mercenaries, trading sides as fast as you can. So when you talk about a gas attack, I can tell you who did it. I can't give you the proof, but it's easy. It's very easy to see who did it. And I'll explain that in a second. Syria, as we've discussed so many times, it's the war of Armageddon. And whether it be Cicada 3301 references warning us of this, whether it be anyone who can just look at Netanyahu's criminality, whether it can be anyone who examines the Golan Heights was stolen for the oil that's there, for Genie Oil Company and the horrible people, Dick Cheney, Rupert Murdoch, Wosley, Rothschild, the evilest people around are all getting their piece of the pie, both with that oil in the Golan Heights and the oil that they want off the coast. So what we really have here is not just oil. This is the Greater Israel Project. It has little to do with your common person who's following Judaism. It has little to do with Hebrews. It has a lot to do with the climate that there could be a democratic Western-style nation. And let's not forget, I might as well just say this, even though people are going to question me on this and how I know this, but of course Israel has tactical nuclear weapons. And Israel has one of the most powerful militaries because it's backed up by our military. So when it comes down to it, if the U.S. backs up Israel, Israel might as well be the 51st state of America. That is nothing to do with Zionism and its 10 forms. It has nothing to do with the rogue Mossad. It has nothing to do with those people who become fundamental and radical based upon any theocracy, religion, or belief. And you have the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews all focused on the playing field, what we call Armageddon, outside of Tel Megiddo. So that's outside of Damascus. So it was predicted that this would happen again, but it didn't take a genius to know that. This is the third one. Same thing. They set up a perimeter that today, I heard President Donald Trump say, I think yesterday, that they are trying to break through that perimeter to get people inside, and they can't. Now, let me repeat that. They are trying to get people through that perimeter, but they can't. Now, you are in a war-torn, has been a civil war with 8-10 factions all fighting each other, and you can set up a perimeter outside of Damascus where they've been bombing, and it's the rebel headquarters of one of the factions, and they can set up a perimeter where only the white helmets, they're all fake, they're not even medics, they're the ones who've set up the 2 previous attacks, and the 2 previous attacks were such pathetic false flags that anyone even looking at it could see that from the pictures that were staged, even if you had no other information. We're not seeing any pictures this time, of course, and we're not being shown any intelligence from satellite photography as we were the last time. So you set up a perimeter, you let in the white helmets. Oh, wait, but they're supposed to be your enemies. Oh, well, yeah, you let in the white helmets who basically do not help anybody except the one faction who is paying them at that moment. That's how it works. Go back and look at the record. And then you let in a UN humanitarian group. Why? They weren't there before. Where were they before? How come that group always shows up right before a gas attack? And then you let in 2 other groups, which are pro-Soros, paid for by Tides Foundation and Open Society, and they too have humanitarian names. One of them has the name, I think, Democracy in it. I can't remember. 2 of them. They always come in. They're the same groups. 4 groups go in. They set up the photo opportunity. They get a battle going so that Assad's group is bombing them with planes. And then they set off a barrel bomb. Now, mind you, fighter planes don't deliver barrel bombs, and that's the only gas that they have in Syria that was left over unaccounted for were barrel bombs. They do not have any gas that can be mounted on a fighter jet that was, in fact, bombing Douma, that area, right? So there it is, same exact scenario as before. This one was, again, near Damascus. The other one was in a very tightly held rebel faction area where they could do this quite easily. And in the 2 before, they brought in the bodies that they then, they didn't give them gas. They weren't gassed. If you look at the body and talk with any doctor, they'll say, no, they were probably given an injection overdose of opium. And so those bodies, they weren't gassed. And we now have reports out of Damascus, all of Damascus, and this happened right outside of Damascus. No gas victims have come into any hospitals in Damascus. They just have had people come in with, they've been bombed and they were shot and they were bombed. No gas. So they set up the barrel bomb. They set it off. They kill their own people. Then they set in the 4 groups, and the 4 groups then take some pictures of some nonsense. The pictures they took last time were absolutely pathetic. Anyone could have realized it was a false flag. Now, why did Donald Trump then bomb Syria? Here's the reality. Bashar al-Assad, like his father, is one of the most criminal and vicious CIA agents in the world. If you don't realize that the CIA has been causing chaos in Syria since basically Saudi Arabia lost control of it, and that's what the Sunnis are fighting about. These are holy lands for them. Damascus is particularly holy land for both Shiite and Sunni. It's where the al-Mahdi, the Messiah of the Islamic faith, will return. As a matter of fact, According to the Shiites, al-Mahdi is already incarnated because the meteorite came, the red glow over Iraq and the death in Iraq, and now the destruction of Damascus. When Damascus is totally destroyed is when the Islamic Messiah will come back. The Sunnis are not 100% convinced that it's focused on Damascus, but they believe the rest of the story. So they're still fighting over Damascus because Saudi Arabia used to have it until we chopped up the Middle East and created this problem and promised, the British promised the Jews in the world that they would have a country to go back to and they would create it for them. And that's exactly what happened. And then when they left, they gave it over to, unfortunately, not only the Jews, but to 10 different types of Zionists. So then they are following what is called the Greater Israel Project, which is to take over Israel, not all of Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and all the way to Iran. And that is the Greater Israel Project. It is the British who are behind that. They wanted to control all the oil. This plan was made a long time ago. It just still continues by fundamentalists like Netanyahu. So do we need to worry about a war right now? Absolutely. Pray that Trump does not send any soldiers in. Do not send any soldiers in. Because Russia is there. They already have soldiers there. Turkey, who is no friend of ours, and we need to get all of our troops in that air base out of Turkey that was supporting the Syrians through all the different factions that we paid. Remember, Obama paid ISIS alone $1 billion a year. $1 billion a year to fight in Syria. When that $1 billion, and people don't play like this didn't happen. Trump came out and said, we are stopping the $1 billion we are paying ISIS. And they're going, what are you talking about?
Well, as we know in our citizen intelligence reports and the headline news, we've been showing that if Hillary was elected, these wars were already planned. Not sure exactly where it would be, but World War III was very important. And it's still important to the banksters. Their system is getting ready to collapse. They need war in order to prop up all this whole fake economy, the corruption at the Federal Reserve, the central banks, the Rothschilds. They have to have war.
That's what it's about, Betsy.
That bottom line. So tell the bankers, sorry, game over. We the people see what you're doing. We call out your false flags and we're not going to war.
The bankers loan to both sides. They win. They sell weapons to both sides. And then afterwards, the losers, they take their money anyway. And then they take their property and their resources, which were held as collateral. So it's a game that's been going on since Venice did this during the Crusades.
Exactly. And now what you're going to show us is how this continues to go on with something called SERCO.
Yes, well, SERCO is basically the British. And when you say the British, you have to realize, when you say the Bank of England, you say the Queen of England, the monarchy, the crown. And when you say the Bank of England, you also say all the liveries and all the monopolies that are allowed by the Crown to be monopolies in those areas of their functioning. There is a company that has taken over Britain called SERCO, and they basically have taken over Australia and Canada and all the service industries. They control the many hospitals, schools. They control the nuclear power plants. They control the nuclear missiles. They control basically everything. All data management in Britain, and they have been found to have a 65% efficiency rate. So 35% just goes down the toilet. So basically they're under fraud charges, huge fraud charges, and they're probably going to go down, but they have over $2.4 billion worth of contracts in America because why? As you point out, SES members give them the no-bid contracts. Why does it always go to foreign governments? How can Urenco, a company that is British-owned, control the only large uranium enrichment facility we have in America? How is that possible? How did they get to take our uranium up out of the ground, Russians, take it to the Brits, and then they take it out of the country and give it to our enemies? This is what goes on because the SES is a bunch of bureaucrats who simply continue the status quo. SERCO has been doing this, and SERCO...
Worse than that, they award contracts to SERCO, and let's just condense this as tight as it can get. We never really won the American Revolution. The British Empire just let us think that, and we have been, even before then, but we have been subjects of the British empire and of the queen. And I'll be damned if I'm going to be a subject of Queen Lizard. I'm Thomas.
Elizabeth,
I'm done with
Elizabeth,
this.
you're
Elizabeth,
getting
are you
confused.
kidding?
Lizzie,
We're sitting
Lizzie.
here watching this Netflix thing, of The Crown, and I'm watching it going, this is all sheer propaganda. She probably paid for that Netflix thing to run so we'd all have soft, fuzzy feelings about the Queen. But look, all that crazy talk that David Icke has been doing all these years that you out there on the say, whoa, that's like crazy talk. No, it's not. And we're going to walk you right to it.
The Queen is heartless. She is stolen from her own country and her 51 Commonwealth nations. We're going to be hammering on her very soon. Let's go back to Syria. How did that happen? Brits. Where did we get the intel for the first 2 fake false flag gas attacks in Syria? Brits. I think the company's called 65. But they use different companies. So it was 2 or 3 different British intelligence agencies. And guess what? Oh, this is beautiful. None of them had agents in the country. Let me repeat that. The first 2 false flag attacks in Syria were reported to us by British intelligence and private British corporate intelligence that these happened, and none of them had people on the ground in Syria. But they gave us the intelligence.
And nobody needs war more than the Queen and the Rothschilds.
Well, they need the area destabilized because you have to realize the Queen, if you wish to understand the Queen, she has her fingers in everything, and she really works through the Knights of Malta. And now, of course, the Pope has taken over the chairmanship of the Knights of Malta. But they sit around and they make plans of, how many countries they're going to bomb and how many refugees and how much they'll make from that, and then how they have to create this refugee disturbance so that the British aligned with the Israelis are drilling and pulling up the liquid gas in the Mediterranean so that Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, Cyprus, Turkey don't get their part. So they're totally into creating a war in Syria. Now, what will Trump do? It doesn't matter. Trump, here's what's going to happen. He's going to look out for America. Okay? What did he do last time? He warned them, and then he sent a bunch of cruise missiles to blow up some planes in an airfield. Next day, they were doing the same thing. Why? Because he knew they didn't drop the gas. He wasn't killing people in retaliation. He was showing the world he would push the button. Does he need to push the button this time? No, he doesn't need to. Does he need to send in troops like Michael Bolton? I was calling Michael Bolton. Like Bolton, his national security advisor, will tell him? No. Does he need to follow the military to send in troops? This is what they would say? No. Why? Because he knows that he needs Turkey out of NATO before they do start a World War III. He knows he's not going to confront Putin. Putin doesn't back down. He knows that Bashir al-Assad and his father were never friends of America. They are rogue CIA. They stir up the whole thing on purpose. They created the incursion of what we call ISIS coming through their country when they did a call to all nations to ask for Islamic terrorists to come to Syria, and they would arm them, fund them, and send them into Iraq to fight Americans. Don't forget that. Then when they came, and they were called Al-Qaeda when they crossed the border from Syria into Iraq. And then when they crossed the border, and even at the end, even before they crossed the border in Mosul and those last strongholds, they called themselves ISIS. But where did they retreat to? Syria. And then when they were finally chased out of the last 2 cities in Syria, where did they retreat to? In U.S. Hueys, in helicopters, using our equipment, they retreated to, of course, Yemen. They had been retreating to Somalia, but then Yemen became the hotbed. Why? Because it's Iranian. It's the Shiites against the Sunnis. If you don't understand that, you cannot understand the Middle East. You will not understand the Greater Israel Project. And you will not understand what's going on in Syria.
Well, I think we need to go back to the Balfour Declaration and revisit that and the motivation behind it and all the havoc that it has created since its inception.
And the Sykes-Picot and the Treaty of Versailles, and then what came out of that, out of the inquiry, came the Council on Foreign Relations, came the League of Nations, came the United Nations, and all that horrible stuff. Why do you think Trump is bashing now the World Trade Organization because of China? Because he wants to end it. That will get rid of Turkey's control and our agreements with Turkey. You'll get rid of all the stupid agreements we have with the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, which of course then is backed up by stupid bankers and brokers who are making bets on derivatives and backing that up with the Bank of International Settlements. He's going to get rid of all those folks. If he gets reelected a second term, all those will be gone. The United Nations will be nothing. Nothing. And that's what it should be, because it's an attempted control of the United States of America.
And then we need to do a controlled demolition of that building. It's probably filled with asbestos and everything, and just raise it totally and be done with the UN.
Let it move to Astana.
I don't care where it moves.
Let it move to Astana.
Yeah, Astana. That's where.
They're all
and
prepared
let all
for that.
the globalists out there. We need to lock up our borders and be done with it. And we need to get out of all these wars. I'm just so freaking tired of it. It's been war all my whole life. The people that I have lost in my life because of these banker wars, just so that their greed can be fed year after year after year. I'm done with it. And I think everybody out here listening to us is done with it too.
Warlord bankers and brokers are the result of corporations being created. The first corporations were the British East India Company, the Dutch East India Company, and their German bankers. That war is still going on, and we are fighting it right now with the SES, and the imperialists are now companies like SERCO, Urenco, Rio Tinto. We're going to expose all of them soon.
And you will never hear this from mainstream media because the banksters buy these guys off and they're telling their fairy tales so that people aren't awake to it. I mean, just look at the recent psyops that are going on over there in those channels. I just don't care about talking anymore. They're saying that Sessions is to be trusted and all these people. What, you were reading this to me this morning.
Trust Sessions, trust Ray.
Oh my goodness.
Trust Mueller.
And people are still hanging out there.
We have trust the plan, trust Kansas. And my question was, is the next line trust Toto and the clicking of the scarlet slippers? I mean, please.
If it's not bad enough that the mainstream media fills its space with lies, now you have these alternative media shills out there drumming war.
Oh, yeah. And they even call us names and stuff. When in fact, we are not going to stop. We're going to keep revealing to you day in and day out the truth. Do not be worried about Mueller. Syria, pray with your heart and your soul and your spirit that Netanyahu's attempt right now to not go to jail himself and create a war in Syria does not get accomplished, because the second that he bombs Iran, then that is the signal. Pray that Netanyahu is taken to jail, and that will end this for now.